Did you ever wonder how the small, sleek smartphone you carry around came to be? Well, it all started back in the 1830s and 40s when Samuel Morse and other inventors developed telegraphs and revolutionized long-distance communication. The telegraph worked by transmitting electrical signals over a wire laid between stations. In addition to helping invent the telegraph, the Morse code assigned a set of dots and dashes to each letter in the English alphabet and allowed for simple transmission of complex messages across the telegraph lines. By 1844, Morse sent his first telegraph message from Washington, D.C. to Baltimore, Maryland. By 1846, a telegraph line had been laid across the Atlantic Ocean from the United States to Europe. But something else was stirring, a revolutionary device that made the telegraph look like child's play. This device is the telephone.
Before the telephone, people primarily communicated through telegraphs, written letters, and face-to-face meetings. In 1876, Alexander Graham Bell got the patent for the first legal telephone. With Bell's telephone, the needle was connected by wire to the battery, and the battery was connected by wire to a receiver. When Bell spoke into the open end of the drum-like device, his voice made the paper and needle vibrate. The vibrations were then converted into an electric current which traveled along the wire to the receiver.
The telephone has helped society in many ways. For instance, you could use the telephone like this.
Hey, what's up?
Nothing much. How about you?
Nothing much. You want to go to the beach later?
Sure.
Yeah, see you there.
See you later.
Or this more serious matter, like calling someone when you're in need of help. The first telephone line was created a year after Bell earned the patent for the first telephone, and it stretched over 3 miles. In 1880, the first telephone number was created. By the 1900s, there were over 600,000 telephones in Bell's telephone system. The first rotary dial phone was made in 1927, which was a major landmark in history because it was a lot easier to use, and it was a much better design than the older telephones. The cordless phone allowed you to walk around and talk to people, not just be stuck on a cord.
In the late 1800s, there were many people around the world creating their own versions of the telephone. For instance, Johann Reis, Antonio Meucci, and John Pierce all created telephone-like devices. But Bell was credited with the invention because he bought the legal patent before any of the other inventors. Therefore, it is just an opinion on whether Bell was actually the inventor.
61% of Americans have texted someone in the same room seriously, the same room. 47% consider themselves addicted to their phones. And 71% of Americans check their phones within the first 10 minutes of waking up.
When the first telephone was created, it cost around $3,395, which is a lot compared to newer cell phones, which only cost around $800. The first telephone weighed around 1.75 pounds and had 30 minutes of talk time and was the most important device for facilitating human communication. The first call was on March 10, 1976, to Alexander Graham Bell's assistant, Thomas Watson, and he said,
"Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you."
Bell developed his telephone at the Clark Institute for Deaf Mutes, Northampton, Massachusetts. On February 14, 1876, Bell and Elisha Gray both raced to earn the patent for the acoustic telegraph, and it became a race between the two inventors to get to the patents office. Bell's telephone was not completely done when he asked for the patent, and Gray was completely done. When Bell earned the patent, his notes were oddly similar to Gray's original design. Many people still think that Gray actually invented the telephone.
When the telephone was first created, it revolutionized communications by letting people talk to each other in an easy way and not have to be face-to-face. Now calling isn't even on the top 5 list of telephone uses. Like most great inventions, the telephone has evolved and morphed into something so different from the original, it barely has any similarities. Millions of people are addicted to smartphones and have been depressed from things like social media, online gambling, and getting cyberbullied.
The telephone has gone through many stages in the past 162 years and will likely go through many more in the future that seem impossible to us now, just like the iWatch, smartphone, and iPad must have seemed impossible to Alexander Graham Bell and all the other people that created the early telephone.
For over a century, phones were just, phones. But on June 29, 2007, the first iPhone, the iPhone 2G, was created by Apple, which changed the game in the phone industry. It had a 3.5-inch screen, which is half of the newer iPhones. The price of the phone 2G was $600 originally, and now the price of the newest iPhone, the iPhone 14 Pro Max, is $1,200 with 256 gigabytes, but is $1,600 with 1 terabyte. A new Apple iPhone is released yearly, usually in September or a little bit later. There are 38 different iPhones that Apple has made, and more than 2.2 billion iPhones have been sold as of November 1st, 2018.
The telephone cut down the amount of time it took to send messages to each other and conduct businesses with each other without being in the same room quickly and efficiently. Alexander Graham Bell got interested in the science of sound because he worked with deaf people such as his mother and his wife.
Nowadays, our phones look a lot different than the phones made back in the 1800s. And in 2022, 48.7% of smartphone users use Apple iPhone. As a lot of people know, Apple has changed the game of what smartphones are now, with Steve Jobs being a big help. If you don't know who Steve Jobs is, he was born on February 24th, 1955, San Francisco, California, and died on October 5th, 2011, Palo Alto, California. He was the CEO of Apple for 14 years, and he resigned from Apple in 2011, and a little later died from pancreatic cancer at the age of 56.
Somebody taught me a long time ago a very valuable lesson, which is if you do the right things on the top line, the bottom line will follow. And what they meant by that was if you get the right strategy, if you have the right people, and if you have the right culture at your company, you'll do the right products, you'll do the right marketing, you'll do the right things logistically and in manufacturing and distribution. And if you do all those things right, the bottom line will follow. So yes, we have obviously plans about where we'd like to see the bottom line, but we are focusing most of our energy not on financial re-engineering, because that's not what's been troubled at Apple. We're focusing our energy on the right product strategies, the right market strategies, the right communication strategies, the right logistics and distribution strategies. And the team is making, I think, very strong strides in these areas. And you'll start to see some of this stuff appear, in the next 90, 120 days. So I'm actually really happy about this.